I'm Catherine Reynolds. I'm 45 years old and I thought I knew everything about my life until my husband Daniel died. It's strange how quickly life can change. One moment you're moving forward, day by day with everything seemingly intact, and the next you're staring at a stack of photographs that rip your world apart. Daniel's death, while a shock, was the beginning of an even bigger revelation, a revelation I never could have expected. The call came early on a Sunday morning. It was around 7 a.m. and the world was still hazy with sleep. The voice on the other end was distant, but firm. "Mrs. Reynolds, I'm sorry to inform you, but your husband Daniel Reynolds passed away early this morning. It was sudden heart failure." The words barely registered. They didn't make sense. Daniel, my husband of 20 years, was gone. He was healthy, active, and in his mid-40s. There were no signs, no prior issues. When the call ended, I sat there frozen, struggling to breathe, and I couldn't even speak. The funeral came and went in a blur. People offered their sympathy, but there was something about the weight of their words that didn't settle in. How could I mourn him when so much of him had been a lie? I had no idea. But everything changed when I was alone in his study, sorting through his papers. It was a task I knew would come eventually, but I never anticipated it would lead me down a path that would destroy everything I knew about my marriage. As I sifted through the pile of papers, financial statements, insurance documents, personal records, one thing caught my eye. It was a small leather folder tucked away at the back of a drawer, far from anything I had seen before. My heart pounded in my chest as I opened it. Inside, I found photographs of Daniel. But not the Daniel I knew. These were pictures of him with another woman, a woman I didn't recognize. And there, in those photographs, was a child. A boy, perhaps 3 or 4 years old, sitting on Daniel's lap. They were happy, too happy, and I was not in any of these pictures. The weight of those photographs hit me harder than anything I had ever felt in my life. How could Daniel have kept something like this hidden from me for so long? The woman's name was Alice, and the child's name, according to the birth certificate I found in the folder, was Mason Reynolds. Daniel had a son who was born while we were still married. The papers were damning. This wasn't just an affair. Daniel had another life. He had a family, and he had kept it from me, the person he had promised to share everything with. I'm not sure when it started to feel real, but I couldn't stop thinking about the photographs, the child, the lies. My emotions were a mix of disbelief and rage. I spent the next few days in a haze, my mind racing with questions. How long had this been going on? How did he manage to keep this hidden? Who was Alice? And what had she been to him? And most importantly, who was Mason? I couldn't just leave it there, not without answers. I couldn't live with the fact that my entire marriage, the man I thought I knew, was based on a lie. I knew I needed to find Alice, but where would I even begin? After several hours of searching, I found her, Alice Matthews. There were enough public records for me to piece together her life. She had posted pictures online, social media posts, vacation photos, moments of happiness. The life I had never seen. The life my husband had promised someone else. I couldn't understand how I had missed it. Why didn't I see the signs? I thought about our vacations, the times we spent together. I thought about how Daniel would never share much about his time away. It had always been too personal, too private. Finally, after hours of relentless digging, I found her number. My fingers hovered over the dial pad. I knew I had to speak to her. I couldn't carry this burden alone. But was I prepared for what I might hear? I called her. "Hello?" Her voice was wary, yet calm, as though she'd been expecting this moment. "Alice?" I could barely get the word out. I'm Catherine Reynolds, Daniel's wife." There was a long pause on the other end. "I think we need to meet," Alice said after a moment, her voice quiet but firm. And that's how it all began. The next day I met Alice in person. I'm not sure what I expected from Alice. But the meeting was harder than I ever could have imagined. Alice was sitting in a small cafe when I arrived. She looked just like the woman in the photos. Beautiful, confident, and with a sadness in her eyes that mirrored my own. But this wasn't just about my pain. It was about uncovering the truth, no matter how much it hurt. "I didn't want to hurt you," Alice began, her voice trembling. "I never meant for it to happen this way." I couldn't hold back the tears. "How long, Alice? How long did you and Daniel? How long did you live this life behind my back?" Alice hesitated, And then she answered softly. We've been together for 4 years. Daniel promised me he would leave you. He promised he would make a life with me and Mason. I felt the ground fall out from beneath me. And Mason? My husband had a child with you. How did he keep all of this from me? I asked, my voice shaking with emotion. Alice looked down at her hands, her expression softening. He never told you. I didn't know about you at first. But when I found out, Daniel promised me that one day he'd make things right. He said he would leave you. I couldn't take it anymore. But he didn't, did he? He stayed with me, played the loving husband, and had a secret life with you. He didn't love me, not like he loved you. Alice shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. I loved him, Catherine. I didn't want to hurt you, but Daniel he was torn. He loved you, but he loved me too. And we had Mason. He promised we would be a family. The air between us felt thick, heavy with everything unsaid. I wanted to scream, to yell, to make Alice feel the depth of my betrayal. But instead I just sat there numb, absorbing her words like poison. I don't want revenge, I whispered. I just want the truth. I need to know everything. Alice nodded slowly, as if understanding the magnitude of what she had just shared. She began telling me about their time together, how they had met, how Daniel had pursued her, how he had kept their relationship a secret. The more I heard, the more the world around me seemed to collapse. Every memory, every shared moment with Daniel, now felt tainted by the reality of his hidden life. When I stood to leave, I felt drained, empty, as if everything I had once known was gone. Alice's last words to me echoed in my head. I'm sorry for your pain. I never wanted this to happen. I'm tired of feeling helpless. I needed to take control. Days passed and I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that still clung to me. I hired a lawyer, someone who could help me piece together the financial mess Daniel had left behind. What I uncovered in the following weeks was more devastating than I could have imagined. Daniel had used offshore accounts to hide money, setting up complex business dealings that I had no knowledge of. He had involved my own sister Helen in some of these dealings, convincing her that it was all part of securing our family's future. The accounts that Alice had been using, the money transferred for Mason's care, were all linked back to businesses Daniel had kept from me. I confronted Helen, my sister, who had always been my confidant. She admitted that she knew about the affair but had never known about the money laundering and hidden businesses. I thought I was just helping Daniel keep things from spiraling out of control, she confessed. But I never thought it would get this bad. Anger and betrayal washed over me. My own sister, who had always been my rock, had been complicit in the lies. I had trusted her with everything, and yet she had allowed this deception to continue. I can't believe you didn't tell me, I said, my voice trembling. How could you keep this from me, Helen? I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice full of regret. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know what to do. I thought it would just go away. I'm not a victim anymore. I'm done living in the shadow of Daniel's lies. It took weeks of unraveling the mess Daniel left behind. But I did it. I secured my financial future, ensuring that his secret dealings didn't ruin me. I reached out to Alice again, and this time, we worked together for the sake of Mason. It wasn't easy, but it was the only way forward. I chose not to dwell on revenge. It wasn't about punishing Daniel anymore. It was about healing. I sold the house we had shared and moved into a smaller home. I focused on rebuilding my life, on finding my own strength. One afternoon, as I sat in my new living room, looking out over the quiet neighborhood, I realized something. The man I had loved had been a stranger to me. But I was